Welcome to Hockey Talk. Greg Meekin shares his love for the greatest game on earth, hockey. Cool people, cool stories. Hockey Talk is one very cool radio show. So let's drop the puck, and away we go.
You got me headed to the left, headed to the right, headed back and forth, but baby, it's alright. You got me going to the east, going to the west, going up and down, cause baby, you know best. All day, all night, running around, I'm never gonna stop because you never settle down. Got me shooting into space, flying at the sun. I'm never coming back, cause baby, you're the one.
Hi everyone, welcome to Hockey Talk with Greg Meekin. I am Val Olson, and this broadcast is coming to you live from the great state of Arizona. Greg's secret guest today is the amazing Liam McGuire. I can't wait to listen to these guys. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, Greg's broadcasts go out worldwide. As we speak, this show is streaming on YouTube, Apple TV, Amazon, Roku, Facebook, X, and other platforms. If you missed this live show, no worries. Replays are featured 24/7 on Greg's YouTube channel. We love to hear from our listeners, so feel free to comment. Let us know where you are from and if you have a question for Liam or Greg. I have done over 100 radio shows with Greg Meekin, and they are always packed with secrets from the inside. I'll just be dropping the puck on this one and skating to the bench or maybe the press box. So let's bring Greg Meekin in from backstage. And as they say just before a hockey fight, away we go. Welcome to the show today, Greg.
Away we go. Away we go. This goes back to my old memories. I forgot that Canadians, hockey guys, they say away we go just before a hockey fight. And it sounds almost fun, like away we go. Listen to you could pull up highlights from Hockey Night in Canada for years on that. Val Olson, my pal Val. I cannot believe how stoked I am for this show. I'm really going to try and slow myself down a little bit, because when you deal with our, when you deal with our next guest, our secret guest, or special guest, I just can't believe the information that just pours and pours and pours in. You'll find out his name's Liam McGuire. But I'm going to slow myself down. We're planning for an hour today. To let you know, Liam's going to be popping in hopefully in the next 5-10 minutes, just so you know. But we're used to that on our past broadcasts. You and I have done over 100 together, Val. I've done over 150 radio shows in the last few years, and on multi platforms into countries, England, Canada, imagine that, Edmonton, Alberta, Phoenix, Arizona, Reno, Nevada, West Virginia. We go all over the place, but I'm going to slow myself down and really I'm going back to my roots, which is hockey, and specifically Montreal hockey. You'll be hearing a little bit about that today, but I always used to say, if I was ever down in life, having those ups and downs that people might have, and I've had some real downers. Whenever I was down in life, mainly living in the Seattle area, and I lived for a few years in Florida, what I would do to make myself feel better is I'd go back to my roots. I'd call old friends, and that was in Montreal, or goodness, Dorval. I told Jean Beliveau once that I called him, and this is many times over the years, if I ever just wanted to feel encouraged. So I'm going to be talking hockey today. Whenever I do open a Hockey Talk episode, the last one, Val, you might remember, was with Sean Chalk. We'll do photos maybe later. There you go. Chalk Talk. There you go. Memory lane right there. John Chalk, that was a fabulous show. And so we have Hockey Talk again here with Liam McGuire today. It's just going to be awesome. I'm going to break, what I'm going to do is whenever I do open a Hockey Talk show, I like to always RIP and shout out to my greatest idol of all time, Monsieur Jean Beliveau. Jean Beliveau, I always wish him well. He was the grand ambassador. He's the grand gentleman of hockey, as Dave Stubbs would refer to him. And Monsieur Beliveau is, I had the pleasure of meeting him and having him as my friend since, 2003. I had first become aware of Monsieur Beliveau when he was playing for the Montreal Canadiens. And that was when I was, I think, about 8 years old, 1967. Oddly, last time the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. There you go. Trashing Toronto early in the show. There we go. We're off to the races. But I'm going to break. I know Liam's going to be coming in. I'm going to break my little rule here. I read Liam McGuire's bio, his full bio, and I rarely do this. I'm going to break my own rule before we bring him in. I'm going to actually read his bio, like word for word, because I got through it, and I wanted to have him sign autographs here for me. I fell off my chair 100 times just reading through this bio. He'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go from the top. I see he's backstage in the studio. Nice thing about our studios, you can sit backstage, do whatever you want. Again, sign autographs. Liam, I can't wait to get you on here. Liam McGuire bio. I'm going to take my time on this, Val. This will, if anything, this will be a priceless YouTube clip for Liam. Liam McGuire's bio. Liam McGuire bills himself as the world's #1 NHL historian and trivia expert. Quote, "There's nobody on the planet who knows more history, anecdotes, statistics, and trivia on the NHL than Liam McGuire." That quote was Yvan Cournoyer, former captain of the Montreal Canadiens, 10-time Stanley Cup winner and Hall of Fame member. Okay, that's the first paragraph, Val. Liam is a 4-time published author, with his last book coming out in 2019, titled The Real Ogie, The Life and Legend of Goldie Goldthorpe, published by Burnstown Publishing, with a foreword written by Bob Costas. Bob Costas. His first 3 books were published in 1994, 2001, 2014, and the forewords were written by Dick Irvin, Bobby Orr, and Wayne Gretzky, respectively. I can't believe that. The books were trivia based with history and anecdotes on the NHL, more comprehensive and detailed than any other publication ever published. This is in keeping with Liam's ability to add to the rest of the story, the secrets from the inside, regarding great NHL players, moments, and games. Liam worked in the radio industry for 26 years, hosting or co-hosting 5 shows from 1991 to 2017, and appearing as a guest on hundreds of others throughout North America since 1981. Liam has worked countless events, coast to coast, in Canada and the United States, with 67 Hall of Fame players, including Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe, Rocket Richard, Jean Beliveau, Guy Lafleur, Mike Bossy, Dennis Potvin, and many others. He does a variety of jobs that include host, MC, perform his hockey history and trivia gig, conduct hot stove type Q&A with the players. That's like a campfire chat. And in the last 13 years, he has added auctioneer to his repertoire. He has appeared on numerous national radio and TV shows, including Hockey Night in Canada, Sportsnet, TSN's Off the Record, and radio shows in every province of Canada, plus numerous states. He currently is co-host of a webcast called The Montreal Forum, available weekly on YouTube. And the most important paragraph of this man's biography, because this brand right here that you're looking at is all about fatherhood, mentorship, and hockey. Last paragraph. Liam has 2 children, including a son who he coached in minor hockey for 12 years. He's an ardent supporter of the Canadian military, local law enforcement, and our first responders. You can see why I wanted to read that verbatim. Val, I've told my little anecdote about Jean Beliveau. The only thing I love Secrets from the Inside. Before I bring Liam on, I was thinking Jean Beliveau, I love Secrets from the Inside. I know, and I'm going to check with Liam whether he knows this or not about Jean Beliveau. Le Gros Bill. And I found out a number of years ago that if Beliveau had a long day, a tough game, or just wanted a break, he would go to his lounger chair, put on headphones, and he would listen to Pavarotti. And I didn't know that. He was deeply emotional, and he would weep. He would weep like a baby to Pavarotti. I think that's the only time I've ever said that, spoke that publicly. I learned this years ago, but I wanted to compare that to Liam Maguire for no further ado. Okay, let's bring that Liam Maguire onto the stage, man. Oh my God, look at you. They'll let anybody on this show, Val.
Apparently.
Liam, I'm just going to turn the mic flat to you. You do this stuff. Go ahead and you talk. Liam Maguire, you talk.
Hey, listen, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it very much. We've corresponded for a while now, Greg. We have some mutual friends professionally and personally, I believe. And you've done a bunch of really interesting things yourself in your life. We're the same vintage. You're just a few months older than I am. So we've chewed a lot of the same dirt. And hockey is a common thread for sure. It's never had anybody read the full bio before, but
you like that? Do you like that?
Well, you're about halfway through it there, and I was going, damn, man.
Because you know what I do? Seriously, Liam, seriously, what I do after every live show, it's always the first platform, then it gets shared and replatformed, but I always clip out these shows and put them on YouTube. So the average show, I'll bet you a show like this, I'll bet you this will have 10 to 15 clips of it, just of this stuff. And seriously, reading that bio, I've never done that before. I always do quick teammates, tell me about yourself, but I just couldn't believe it. So there you go. Back to you on that one, Liam.
Well, you got to fire these things out there. Usually before I get hired, you did read that I should say most of my professional life was involved in radio in some capacity. I did other things, obviously, not only in my youth, but even later on. I was a restaurateur, and I currently have a place. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep a puppy under control. Right.
All right. What kind of dog? You got a little doggy?
Yeah, I got a dog here. My girlfriend and I. Yeah, it's more hers than mine, but he's a Pomsky. So he's a cross between a Pomeranian and a Husky. So
dogs are welcome. It's just like a restaurant when you bring your kids. I brought my twin boys to restaurants, just closed down the place when they were little, but dogs are welcome. We love them here. Go ahead.
Anyway,
go ahead,
I apologize. That's why I'm bending over a little bit here to try and stop him from biting.
Does your dog bite?
Exactly.
That's not my dog.
Yeah. It's been a great run, Greg, and I'm still going. I'm going strong. I was talking to Cornway this morning. He like you said, gave me that beautiful anecdote for the bio. I was in communication with Bobby Orr last week. I'll be in communication with Wayne Gretzky in the next couple of weeks. These guys are not personal friends, although Yvon is, but Bobby and Wayne are two guys I've gotten to know. So they're certainly acquaintances, and they very graciously wrote the forward to two of my books. I'm so thankful for that. And Dick Irvin is another guy who I'm in pretty steady communication with. And I shouldn't say steady. We stay in touch in his
Wow.
declining years here as he rolls through the latter part of his life. He's long done everything professionally, but those are the men that very graciously wrote the forwards to my first 3 books, and I just have had an insatiable appetite for hockey. I played it throughout my youth and into my adulthood a little bit competitively till I was 24, and in the beer leagues and men's leagues after that, well into my 40s, and coached my son, as you read as well, and now follow the game not only to keep up with podcasts and webcasts, but I currently do a bulk of my work. I don't have that on there, but I'm working for a company out of St. John, New Brunswick called the Legends of Hockey Group, and it's owned by a man named Steve Walton, and he has a stable of players, and we travel around, and he brings 10 NHL alumni on every trip. We generally go on a trip a month during the winter. The winter, as we would classify it here in Canada, which is basically September to June type thing. So, these 9 guys still play, and they're coached by Chris Nyland. So Nyland coaches, and they play. And they're all names you would know, Greg. You and most of your listeners, any of them that are hockey fans, would know these names. Ron Duguay, Lucien Deblois, Stefan Richer, Brian Scruglan, Darian Hatcher, Darius Kasparaitis, Rick Vive, Bernie Nichols. It's Aaron Atcham, Dale Weiss, all guys that are either recently retired or been even retired for a while. They play these charity games. We go on a series of them over a 5 to 10 day stretch. We play a series of games. Chris Nyland is the coach, and I do all the microphone work. So I'll do the in-house PA work and then host the receptions after and perform a little bit if need be. And then we go close a bar somewhere, and then we rinse and repeat. It's a perfect gig, man. And that's my 3rd year working with Steve. So we've been on 2 tours already so far this hockey season, if you will, and we head out. I'm out very soon for the next few. So that's kind of where I've been hanging my hat a lot, along with speaking around Ottawa here. I'm speaking Friday night with a bunch of Sens alumni. On Saturday, I've got John LeClaire, Troy Crowder, Sean Donovan, Jason York, Gal Iafrate, and Shane Corson on Saturday night at an event that I'm emceeing. So my life is continually touched by the NHL, past and present, and I love every second of it.
Oh, wow. What do you do in your spare time, Liam? I can't believe it. I can't believe you, man. We're both, like you said, we're both traveling down Route 66. We're 66 years old. I don't know about you. I don't know about you. I'm working harder than I ever did when I was working for a living, but hats off to you. Tell you what, just as a side note, I'm so happy to see just how successful and rocking and rolling you are. Before we do end the show, I want you to really do a shout out to the guys, those awesome guys that are supporting you. But since the COVID lockdown, I tell all my friends, we're all basically a new brand. Everyone, Sheriff Mark Lamb, anyone I know who owned restaurants, blah, blah, they were shut down in COVID. And so everything they've done since then, and we're only talking the last 3 years, it's been wonderful to see. And I've been moved to see your success right now, because we both even talked on the phone during tough times, lean times. But that said, I want to, it's so fun. We have such a diverse audience. I've got a lot, you might know, my audience is split between Canadians and Americans. And since 1983, since I came down here, I left Quebec in 1983, I've been kind of trying to introduce the United States to the great game of hockey. Very few Americans, especially, remember Liam in the 70s and 80s, they weren't obviously developed at the level of Canadians, and everything changed with Lake Placid, but I don't want to digress here. I want to because of variety of audience, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I'm going to ask you about a couple of stories that blew me away in watching your work. I followed you very closely for the past few years. And I'm going to toss them out because it's very audience related and it's personal related with me and stuff too. And then you just go ahead. And when you rock and roll, you talk for as many minutes as you need. I know our Captain James McCormick, our executive director of the Vietnam Veterans of America, he once talked for 43 straight minutes. It's because you got stuff to say. So I'm going to tee you up, okay? For welcome to Hockey Talk, Monsieur Liam Maguire. First one on August 9th, 1988. The world turned on its axis. I'll just tee you up and take as long as you want. I thought I knew about that story until I talked to you about that story, which might have been in the last year. I said, hey, tell me about that. And you told me stuff I never knew. Go ahead, Liam Maguire. It's all yours.
Well, that's the Gretzky trade, or ironically, just a small digression, as you say, not my last trip, but the trip before. I was on the trip. Sergio Momesso was on the trip. And I said, Sergio, no one will ever either forget or remember what day you were traded, because he was traded August 9th, 1988. It's a total footnote. NHL player involved in a 5-6 player deal with the Canadiens and the St. Louis Blues. And it happens to be the same day Wayne Gretzky gets traded from Edmonton to LA. So I forget exactly what all I shared with you, but what I've been able to glean over the years was and where a lot of this came to the forefront for me, Greg, was in 1998-99. I did a contract that hockey season for Labatt's, and we traveled to a different part of Canada every Tuesday morning. You say, why Tuesday? Because Labatt's and Sportsnet only were allowed to air, there's the dog, we're only allowed to air their national game on Tuesday nights at that time. So it was a national broadcast that Labatt's were sponsoring, and I was hired to entertain the group that we were going to be in front of coast to coast in Canada in a licensed establishment of their choosing in whatever city we were in. Part of my crew, part of my crew, but part of the crew I was part of was Glenn Gretzky, Wayne's second youngest brother. Brent's the youngest, Glenn's the second youngest. And Wayne was part of our crew. He worked part of the promotional angle of it. And he and I became pretty close friends, as you can imagine. We're traveling together. We did this for 26 consecutive Tuesdays. So he shared with us that year, before John Davidson, before Hockey Night in Canada, before anybody, we heard from Glenn around January that Wayne was going to retire. And within a couple of weeks, it had been leaked out, and then John Davidson broke it publicly, and then all hell broke loose because Wayne was going to retire. And so people were lining up to try and make sure they got their last shot with him. In the course of those conversations came out the details that led up to his trade from Los Angeles to, from Edmonton to Los Angeles. I got to get this dog out of here, man. And what came out of that, Greg, was he told us that Wayne's dad, Walter, the late Walter Gretzky, had been contacted by some people in Los Angeles that were friends with the McNall family and said, hey, just so you know, Peter Pocklington is shopping, that's not the right word, but is attempting to maybe have discussions about Wayne being traded. Keep in mind, they had just won their 4th cup in 5 years, and Wayne had just won his 2nd Conn Smythe trophy. He was the best player on the planet. Mario Lemieux was just emerging as a contemporary, but it was still Wayne's world, if you excuse the pun. And Walter shares this with Wayne. Wayne goes back to Peter Pocklington, who says, well, yeah, Wayne, it's a business. You're marrying an American girl, and I could stand to make a lot of money. You're in your prime. It could be a good deal for Edmonton. It'll be a good deal for you where you go. And as it was shared with us, true or not, largely in part by Wayne's brother Glenn, that Wayne at that point said, make it happen. Go ahead. If you're shopping me after what we've just done and you don't want me, no, I want you. It's got to be a great deal, blah, blah, blah. All the rest of the kind speak that you would expect at that time when a guy got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. And the next thing you know, a transition and a transaction was well underway, and we all know what it became. This isn't the situation when Wayne went from Indianapolis to Edmonton in the WHA, when Winnipeg Jets were a serious suitor, and it was a backgammon game, 35,000 feet in the air, that Nelson Scalabania won, which gave him the rights to make the deal with Edmonton, and that's how he ended up being traded in the WHA. This was different, obviously, but that's how I was led to believe the trade went down. It was a precursor of a conversation that came to Walter Gretzky, then to Wayne to Peter Pocklington. It was unearthed. The ball, it was fast forwarded to a fact, no problem at all. Make it happen. And we all know the rest is history on August 9th, 1988. So that's pretty much the backstory as I know it, Greg, to Wayne's trade from Edmonton to LA.
Backstory. What we read in the papers is very often not what the secrets from the inside were.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep teeing you up here. I wanted to talk about two things. Number one, something I heard a couple of weeks ago on a podcast. I want you to talk about, and this can be quick, but I want you to talk about, and this is comparing the culture of winning like championships and championship rings, as opposed to shall we say, more complacent or apathetic cities. And I want you to tell the story. I think it was the Mont Tremblant fantasy camp where you did a count of rings. Just and indulge us here. This is real, and this is from my American buddies. This is from my Seattle buddies in 1983, where I said, dude, what's with your tolerance for losing, guys? Montreal Canadiens, if we went 2 seasons without a Stanley Cup, we burned down the old Forum, right? So you go ahead, tell that story. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was those guys all played in the era, the one that you and I grew up in, where at the start of every hockey season, whoever was the mayor of Montreal, Jean Drapeau, or whoever it may be, will say, at the end of the season, the Stanley Cup parade will take its usual route, right? That was that great line. But I got hired by Murray Wilson. So got to keep in mind, he's a 4-time Stanley Cup winner himself. But he wouldn't say necessarily ran the alumni, but he played a huge role in with the Montreal Canadian alumni, who more formally went by the name Les Anciens Canadiens. And he cobbled together, the end thing to start doing was these fantasy camps. And you got a number of former players who were the big names and the stars, and you worked out a deal, and you got a location, and you put it out there, and you had a fee, usually exorbitant, and people would come from all over the world to participate, because you're going on the ice. You're going to go on the ice with these superstars, with Guy Lafleur, and all the rest of the great names that he could bring together. And he did this for a series of years in the late 90s and the early 2000s. I think it only lasted about 5 years, maybe, went its way. I think after the Rocket passed away, it died pretty quickly. But I think he participated in the first, not as a player, but he showed up. And this is where I got brought in. I think after the first year or two, they wanted to get something more formal on the microphone. I knew Murray going back a few years, and he hired me. And the location was in the town of Arundel, which is just outside Mont Tremblant. And it was at a golf course called Arundel, named after the town. And that course was owned by Dickie Moore. So there's another 6 Stanley Cup rings. And Dickie would host. It was part of a week-long fantasy camp, Montreal Canadian fantasy camp. They used the ice at a rink in Tremblant, and they had a number of other events. And you got so much swag. And then you got everything signed. And when they had the big dinner is where I would be hired to be brought in. And I worked it 3 years in a row. And the second of the 3 was 1999, because Rocket died in June of 2000. I think the last one I participated in anyway was the fall of 2000. And in 1999, I walked in with Larry Robinson. I arrived shortly after him, and I knew Larry a long time. And we walked in together. Speaking of Stanley Cup rings, there's another 6. So that's just as a player. He hadn't done he had one with New Jersey as an assistant coach. He hadn't one as a head coach of the St. Louis stuff yet. So he had 6 as a player with the Habs. And I tell you, Greg, I saw the coolest thing. We just had this on Twitter 10 days ago or so. As a little clip on our cast. he walked in, and Dollard St. Laurent, Donnie Marshall, and Phil Goyette were sitting on the porch. There's actually a porch to this golf lounge area. It wasn't a lounge, golf area, part of the golf course, Dickey's golf course. And Dollard St. Laurent stood up and walked over, and Larry was walking. He's a big man, and Dollard St. Laurent, you know, he's smaller, but a good-sized man himself, older, obviously. And they hugged each other. And Larry said to Dolly, "Hey, old 19." And Dollard said to Larry, "Hey, young 19," because they both wore sweater 19. And they hugged each other like you would expect family to hug, like family who don't see each other very often. That's what that hug was. I've talked to Larry so many times about this since. I was so taken by that hardcore Hab fan, watching these guys exchange that hug. And we went in. It was dinner time. We went in. Everybody's sitting down to a fabulous meal. Drinks are flowing. I take the microphone. I start doing my thing. I'm going up and down, seeing all these men sitting there. And I'm to the crowd who are assembled for the fantasy camp. I'm doing questions on the guys who are sitting there. And in some of the cases, the guys didn't even know. Like, they don't know. They weren't going home at night memorizing their own careers. You know, that's what guys like me were for. So I was doing background stuff on these Hall of Famers. And about halfway through the night, I went, holy lifting. There's a pile of Stanley Cup rings in this room right now. Like a pile. I just passed Jean Beliveau, Henri Richard, and Yvon Cournoyer. And that's what made me think about it, because there's 31 rings just with those three guys. And I went, man, I got to count them. I'm going to count them. And I counted them. And it was 153 Stanley Cup rings in that room that night in Tremblant, in Arundel in 1999. And no internet, no cell phones. If you had a phone, it was one of those big Get Smart things. Like nobody, it was just a special moment in time, man. I tell people, like Chris Nyland was there, but he has the one ring from 86. So he counted. Murray Wilson, who organized it all, counted with his 4, and you go on and on and on and on and on. Serge Savard, 8. Larry Robinson, 6. You know, go down the line, Greg, you know. These guys all won multiple cups, and it was 153 rings in the room. And I got a chance to speak in front of those guys. Have that opportunity later at Yvon Cournoyer's golf tournament. He would bring a small group of some of those guys in. Guy would always come. Dickie Moore, Beliveau, God rest his soul. Well, they've all passed, right? And they'd come to Cournoyer's, and I would MC that, and it'd be a small sample size. Murray would blow the doors off it. Like literally anybody who could still walk was invited and processed and brought in and taken care of. And they came, man, because they loved each other. And I saw that firsthand. That thread that runs through that organization. We're seeing a little bit again right now, but we saw it. I saw it firsthand, big time there in the late 90s and early 2000s.
We've talked about that before, and it's just, and I'm gonna very biasedly say I'm biased to Montreal. There is a something special. I think it comes in the victory. There's just nothing like victory. To put what Liam just talked about, remember, these were 153 rings of living guys. We haven't even talked to see, to put this in context.
Rings that are real Joliet here, or
Howie Morenz.
Like those guys were all passed away. I mean, you start adding it up, it gets pretty crazy. Right? I mean, from
my grandmother, Liam, my grandmother in Dorval, it was during the Maroons Canadiens rivalry, and she went to the old forum and watched Howie Morenz play hockey. And I said, Nana, what was that like to watch Howie Morenz play live? You know, she said he was a beautiful skater.
Yeah.
You know, I want to keep this in context with 153 rings. I still can't get over that. To put that in context for my Seattle buddies, I'm a hardcore Seahawks fan. I'm a 12 before it was cool since 1983. But Seattle Seahawks have won one ring. Okay, one right there. And that was a toughie. They should have 2, but they didn't run the ball. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's one ring.
Yeah.
We're talking 153 Stanley Cup rings in the same room. You got to be, I say, Americans, I say this a lot relating back to the early 80s when I came down here, dude. The Americans, they don't know anything about hockey. We had Jean Bell. I was on the front page of the Gazette with Jean Beliveau, and people in Bremerton, Washington didn't even know who he was. He was opening my rink. So they knew who Gretzky was, though. That's my fantasy Kent story. But I want to switch gears just a little bit, too. I want to ask you, because, again, it's an anecdote I heard from you, and I know it would entertain people. I'm going to ask you about Newsy Lalonde, okay? I'm going to ask you about Newsy Lalonde and that era. Because when I came to the States, I told my buddies, no, dude, you should see hockey, like Junior B hockey in the West Island. It was like a Vietnam War zone, right? We had the two St. John's ambulances parked outside, and always a couple of mandatory cops sitting there. But talk to me about Newsy Lalonde. Tell about the character a little bit, and then tell me about how that story relayed when you did it the other day.
Yeah. Well, Edward Newsy Lalonde was born in Cornwall, Ontario, 1887. We just celebrated, we just passed this, what would have been his birth date, still was his birth date, but he's long past, obviously. And I believe he died in 1970, if I'm not mistaken. But he was one of the first superstars of the game as it became professional. The difference between amateur and professional in respect to the Stanley Cup happened around 1908. When a league in actually Michigan, Upper Michigan, turned pro, started paying guys, and then everybody followed suit very quickly. And the league that was the forefront, the forerunner of the NHL was the NHA, the National Hockey Association. It existed from 1909 to 1917, and that's where we first got to meet Newsy Lalonde, those that were around back in those days. And as I was sharing this story the other day on the anniversary of his birth, and it was actually Phil Goyette's birthday the same day, and Phil Goyette was in Tremblant that night. He won 4 straight Stanley Cups with the Montreal Canadiens from 57, 58, 59, and 60. And Newsy Lalonde, that era, the best way to describe it, Greg, is that every decade or generation you go back, hockey was that much more violent. In 1950, a man named Sprague Cleghorn at the NHL awards dinner was being interviewed by a writer from Sports Illustrated who was trying to get his feet wet on the violence in hockey, which was still very, very significant, but not what it would have been in the 30s or 20s or 1910s. In Newsy Lalonde's heyday. And they asked Sprague, how many fights do you think you were in your career? This is all documented. People can go online and find this conversation. And Sprague tilted his head back and put his thumb and forefinger on his chin. And he says, do you mean just stretcher cases? Now, he was dead serious, absolutely dead serious. Sprague Cleghorn was fined and suspended by his own team. For violence. That's how violent he was. This is before Eddie Shore. And Eddie Shore was a whole other animal. But before Eddie, there was Billy Kachu, who was suspended for life. There was Sprague Cleghorn. There was Harry Mummery. And there was Newsy Lalonde. And these guys were vicious. They came from hard scrabble backgrounds who were very gifted athletically. So when you put them in the small confines of an arena and said, go out and beat those other 5 men, score more goals in any fashion possible, they took that literally. And they went out and would do anything necessary to win. And so much so, the games were so violent, so much blood, so many broken bones. It was not uncommon in the 1910s and into the 1920s for police to be waiting at the conclusion of a game to arrest a player or two. And the way the process worked was they would go in, talk to the coach. Who's the guy? Everybody knew. Let's say it was Newsy. Newsy's got to come down to the station. George Kennedy, owner of the Montreal Canadiens, or Leo Danderan. Newsy's got to come down to the station. Okay, I'll bring him down. And you'd shower up, bring him down to the station. Into jail he'd go, process, do the paperwork. It would take a couple of hours. Sometimes, depending on the egregiousness of the incident or the replication, how many times they may have to spend the full night. It has their penance, really, their punishment. Most times they were released in a few hours. They post a bond. It was almost always around $50. This is all documented as well in a brilliant 3-volume set, long since out of print, called The Trail of the Stanley Cup. If anybody ever gets a chance to get their hands on any of those editions, and I have them, the Charles Coleman was the author, and he broke it down from 1893, the first year the Stanley Cup was awarded, to 1967, the first year of the modern expansion when the 6 teams came in. And he broke that hockey into 3 different time periods. He has all these stories, multiple arrests at the conclusion of games, charges of assault that would have to be peace bonds, bail, what have you, posted for these players to go back and continue playing when they could. In some cases, suspensions were handed out. And we had the worst, of course, in 1908. Ironically, a game involving a Cornwall team. Newsy Lalonde was a young man at that time. He wasn't playing. He was only what would he have been? No, he was 21 years old. He was playing, but he wasn't in this game. And a man was killed. Owen McCourt was killed during a brawl on the ice. And the man who was later charged for the murder, his name was Charles Masson, Masson. He was later acquitted. How are you going to prove it, right? It was 15, like everybody on the ice was fighting, breaking sticks over each other's head, spearing each other in the throat, and punching the shit out of each other, till guys were incapacitated. That's what it was like in those early days of hockey. And it's really, really hard to explain unless people have done some research. But when it was Newsy Lalonde's birthday, and I was recanting some stories about him, because he was one of the most gifted players. His name dots the record books for points and assists, and he was right there with the Cy Dennernys and the Nell Stewarts. Not quite Joe Malone. You had Joe Malone, then you had Newsy Lalonde and Nell Stewart and a bunch of others that came along very, very quickly, including Howie Morenz, who came in 1924. So he would have been privy. He would have seen and been part of some of this. He was no Shrieking Violet himself, by the way. But that's the way it was then when guys like Newsy Lalonde and those guys played. It was vicious. Eddie Shore, just one more digression, Greg. Eddie Shore holds the record, and it's not a record that was ever kept. But now, if you fight 3 times in a game, you're kicked out. You can actually fight twice in an NHL game right now, currently, 2025, and stay in the game. If you have a third fight, regardless who started it, whatever, they'll toss you. Back in the day, you could fight as many times as you wanted. And in 1929, this is an amazing story. In a game between the Montreal Maroons and the Boston Bruins, the Montreal Maroons set out to say that tonight, Eddie Shore goes to the hospital. We don't care how. We don't care about the game. We don't care about the score. Tonight, Eddie Shore goes to the hospital. And there was so much fighting in this game and so much blood that to stop the game, this is in 1929. The NHL is now already 12 years old. They had to scrape the blood off the ice, and they succeeded. They sent Eddie Shore to the hospital. He took 2 out of the 5 guys that he'd altercations with him. One of the guys, his last name was Trottier, no relation to Brian. Shore collapsed that man's lung. He collapsed his lung with a spear, followed by hitting, punching. It was the most vicious night in hockey history, a game between the Boston Bruins and the Montreal Maroons. Shore missed one game when he next played on home ice. The owner of the Bruins, Mr. Adams, presented at center ice prior to the game, gave Eddie Shore a check, $100 for every stitch that he took in his face. Gave him a check for multiple hundreds of dollars. in 1929. This whole incident should be documented unto itself. The Maroons set out to put Eddie in the hospital. They succeeded. He took 2 guys with him. And it's the most violent night in hockey history. People have no idea. If the fans today who get upset when something happens in the game or there's a little bit of scrapping, like last night with in the Boston Islander game, right? When Zadorov ran Schaefer and all the Islanders came, that was warm up back in the day. I mean, that was nothing. And Zadorov's a throwback. You could parachute that guy back in and he'd be fine. So would some guys, so would some other guys today. But 90% of the league today wouldn't know what to do. They'd put their thumb up their butt. The fans would too. They'd put their other one in their mouth and they'd cry like babies at the way it was back then. And despite that, you had all of these phenomenal players who could play the game so expertly and so well. Eddie Shore was a 4-time Hart Trophy winner. Howie Morenz led the league in scoring, was a Hart Trophy winner, Stanley Cup winner. They both won cups. Like they were the two. They were the Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews of that era, albeit one is a forward, one is a defenseman. It was just a different time, Greg. And I know I've researched it all. I've interviewed a lot of guys who played in that era, a lot of guys over the years since I started doing all this. And I could talk about it all day because I'm mesmerized by it. I would love to have been able to go back in time and be in the rink in one of those games, man, and see it all go down. It would have been not just because of the violence, but just to see. Look, you're talking about your relative who saw Howie Morenz play. I've talked to people. I talked to his line mate, for God's sake. Rolls Joliet and I used to drink quarts together at the Prescott Hotel. And I would ask him about Howie Morenz. He was Howie Morenz's line mate. And it was the start of everything, Greg, no matter what it is in life. Our own lives, sporting events, historical events, there has to be an origin. There has to be a spark. There has to be a start. There has to be a genesis. And for hockey, and specifically for the NHL, we have that chronologically. We know it started in 1917. But where did it come from? The NHL just didn't parachute out of nothing. Okay, had the NHA. Right. Well, where did the NHA come from? Where did the Stanley Cup come from? So all of that had a beginning. And out of that beginning begot this, what became a very, very, very violent game because it was played by hard-scrabbled men who came from poor existences, who were great athletes. Any era, every era has great athletes. And you put blades on their feet and gave them weapons and said, go out and score more goals than those 5 guys. Yes, sir. No problem. I'll leave my wake, but I'm going to do it. And that's who you had playing hockey at that time.
And, Liam, the youngsters nowadays, it's hard for guys like us to not say back in my day. Because these youngsters now and these sports guys, think about quarterbacks in the NFL. They are coddled. I mean, coddled. That's an entire broadcast for another day. But just lest we say, it's not a cliche if hockey is labeled as a violent sport. When you started telling me those old stories about Newsy Lalonde, his name, Newsy, is because he was a paper boy, right?
That's
Newsy.
Right. He was a paper boy in Cornwall. They all had such great nicknames back then. Newsies was very appropriate.
Very, very, very cool. As I say, I feel like a 12-year-old, like struck groupie today because I know all these names. I'm saying, you sat with Arel Joliet? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So excuse me if I sound like, again, a star-stud thing, but our passion for this. I want to, just to kind of update, we're at almost 10 to the hour. I'm going to try and keep this show to an hour. You're a busy guy, Liam, and Val has another broadcasting commitment in this next half hour of the show. So what I'll say is we got 10 minutes left. I got about 1 or 2 key things that I want to ask you. But what I'll say as we get towards the end of the hour here, and I do want to leave you at least a couple of minutes to tell everybody what you're doing now. Again, you're so active, and also your books that are available. This Ogie book was amazing, but What are you gonna
Speaking of violence.
dude, so I'm gonna ask you briefly, and it's just because this is so close to you and me. If you can do this in about maybe 3 minutes or so, give or take, I'd like you to share the 1970s Montreal Canadiens that we were raised with, namely those mid 70s. You go wherever you want on that. When again, I keep relating this, chatting to my folks in Seattle and stuff. You just have no idea what it's like to be an elite winner every single year. It changes you. Secretariat. Go ahead and just talk 70s Canadian, because you were there just like me, Liam.
Yeah, I started going to games in 75. I think you preceded me there. I think you got to games before I did, but I was 15 years old, turned 16 3 weeks later. First game 3 semifinal, Montreal Buffalo, Saturday night, May 1, 1975. Habs won 7-0. Guy Lafleur's first playoff hat trick. He scored his third goal on an end-to-end rush on a delayed penalty. The roof came off. I said, I'll never experience anything like this again. And then 4 years later, he upped it when he scored to tie the game against Bruins with the too many men on the ice. And I was there as well, Thursday night, May 10th, 1979. So I started going to the Forum, as I said, May 1, 75. And for the next 21 years until it closed on that Monday night, March 11, 96, I was there 344 times. 78 of those were playoff games. I was at Stanley Cup parades. I was there the night they won the Cup in 79 against the Rangers. And it was a rite of passage at that time. I mean, I came in as a fan, my first memories of the 66 final. Saturday night, we'd pick up the game at 8:30. The first period would be half over. My dad would let me stay up to the end of the second. I was 7. I had to go to bed. So, it was 1969 when I was 9, turning 10, that I started watching games in totality. Habs won the Cup. They had won the Cup in 68 as well. They won in 69. Terrible miss of the playoffs in 70. The surprise win in 71 with Dryden. They lose in 72 to the Rangers in the first round. 73 is a year that doesn't get talked about a lot. They only lost 10 regular season games. My favorite player of all time, Yvan Cournoyer, who I was talking to this morning, won the Conn Smythe Trophy with 15 goals. It was an unbelievable year. 74, Dryden sits out. They don't have the goaltending. They lose again to the Rangers. 75, Dryden comes back. They make it to the semis. I attend for the first time, and then they're on their way, and they win 4 in a row. And it at the time, what it gave us, Greg, was 1977, which is the greatest single year in NHL history by any team, the Montreal Canadiens. 60 wins, 8 losses, 12 ties, 377 goals for, 171 against, I believe it was, and just rolled through everybody. Like, it was ridiculous just how good they were. So that was the height of the team and Lafleur and the roster. The only thing that 73 has over 77, and I'll finish on this note to keep it in your 3-minute timeline about the 70s, is 1973 put 11 guys in the Hockey Hall of Fame. No other team in NHL history, Detroit's going to tie it, but nobody will ever surpass that than the 73 Habs. They put 11 guys from that roster in the Hall of Fame, because you had some of the old guard like Jacques Laperriere and Henri Richard, and then of course you had the new guard coming up in Lafleur and Schutt and Robinson and Dryden. So it's a great mix and it's a great combo. And the Habs of the 70s, I wasn't around for the 40s and the 50s when the rocket got going, but I almost feel like I was, because I've talked to so many people and I interviewed so many of those guys. And I sat with Rocket Richard in 1989. It's one of my absolute highlights. And I feel I've got a bit of a window into understanding of what that was like. And I think there was a lot of similarities. However, my era, as it was for you, was the 1970s, where it all really began in earnest. And what a ride. So thankful we were there to see it.
See it and witness it. It honestly, it was. I was infatuated with perfection and elitism and excellence. I was 12. In 71, I was 12. Once you've gone through it, once you've experienced it, and I will still say, I believe that I saw those mid 70s, including 77. I believe I saw the greatest team ever to be assembled in any sport on earth.
I think
when I look at When I look at a Jean Beliveau, it sounds funny. Americans don't understand a lot of hockey, especially in past days. I say one thing they would understand with Beliveau is 17 rings. They understood that 17 rings. Okay, not only just a class act guy, all that stuff, but ambassador of hockey internationally, really. And to this day, his name lives on. 5 minutes out, Liam, give me a quick Le Gros Bill story, Monsieur Beliveau. We're going to have, and I'm going to commit you, close you on this. I knew from the beginning we got way too much content to ever get to. I'm thinking of a part deux. Okay, a part deux. And for my American folks, that's part deux. That's spelled DEAU X. What that means is part two. That's TWO. Okay, you Americans. See how I trash talk across the borders, Liam? I told Sheriff Lamb, I'm whatever you're not. If you're Canadian, I'm American. If you're American, I'm Canadian, man. I just mess all you guys up. Tell me a quick Beliveau story. And I have tons to get to, but after the Beliveau story, I'll chat with you a bit, but we'll have Val take us out here and stay on time. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Good to go. Yeah, you want a little Beliveau anecdote, steps outside the box. This kind of really sets the table, at least according to my late father, it always did. Jean Beliveau and his wife were married in June of 1953 in Quebec City. And my father and my mother were married in July of 1958, just north of Quebec City in a little village called Stoneham, where my mother grew up. And they were married by the same priest. So that's kind of, my dad always said it set the table. That priest's name was Father Leonard Murphy, who was a very, very close friend of Jean Belivau's. In fact, when Jean was playing not only junior, but senior in Quebec, he would pick up Father Murphy at the presbytery where they stayed, and he would bring him to the arena, the Colisée, and take him back after. Jean was an altar boy there as well, which you're probably familiar with, and he married Jean and his wife in 1953. He later became a parish priest in the village of Stoneham, and when my parents got married in 58, Father Leonard Murphy presided over officiated their wedding. So at my wedding in 1994, by the way, I'm the only man in the history of the Montreal Forum. 71 years, 3 months, 17 days, history of that building in the NHL. I'm the only guy to propose at center ice. Only guy. And Jean Beliveau and Father Murphy, when Jean passed away, my mom wanted to go to the service, and I took her down, and we went through the line, and my mom was elderly at that time. So when Madame Beliveau saw my mom, she stood up, and they conversed in French, and my mom recanted that story about Father Murphy, and they hugged, and it was just amazing. It's just such a connection that I always had with Jean. I worked with him over 50 times. He became a very dear friend. We'd have dinner together if he came to Ottawa. I miss him dearly. And that's my Beliveau anecdotal story that steps outside the box from his 507 goals, 712 assists, 1,219 points, 10 cups as a player, 7 as an executive. A little bit outside the box story on Jean Beliveau.
Lame, baby, you give the inside scoop. You give the secrets from the inside. Like I say, I'm going to be rapping here, but I feel like you're a brother from another mother, a frère d'une autre mère, because we're the same age. We went through the same community college, Southern Ontario Community College system. We're both hardcore Habs, all that stuff. I ain't nothing. I mean nothing compared to you with the numbers. I still can't believe. Your encyclopedia computer brain. I say Liam McGuire, he's just like AI, only smarter and faster.
I do my gigs all the time, Greg, and that's how I started. Now you have to with the cell phones. So I get people that said, bring up the list of Stanley Cup winners. For example, Greg, just as we shut down here.
Oh, no, and no rush. We can carry over a few if you need.
No, I want to stay to the hour. I know we got a minute here. Give me the year one of your parents were born. One of the years your parents were
1933.
Born. 33. So the New York Rangers won the Stanley Cup in 33. They beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup final. It was a best of 5. The scores were 6-2, 6-4, 6-2. So it got nicknamed the tennis series. And so I feel I can provide something really unique when I'm on stage. I can spit that out faster than any computer.
Okay, my father was 1923.
1923 was the Ottawa Senators, and they beat a team called the Edmonton Eskimos, ironically, same as a football team, but they beat Edmonton. The interesting thing about 1923 and that Stanley Cup final, which was played on March 31st, King Clancy, a name you're probably familiar with,
Oh, yeah,
he
sure.
played every single position in the game, including goalie, because in those days, the goalies served their own penalties. So when Alex Connell went to the net, went to serve his penalty, he threw his goal stick to King Clancy. He said, "Take care of things, kid, till I get back." So he played all three forward positions, both defense positions, and he played a net. 1923.
Where do you get your information from, Liam? Okay. Now I know the format of our next show, right? Because you do the trivia thing, you do the MC thing, you know. By the way, side note, before I forget, the book that I published, Why He Came to America and What I Think Now, I published it a little over 3 years ago. You'll love this. In the book, I put I'm going to have a contest one of these days. Seriously, probably be for about $100 US. How many times does Greg Meekin trash the Leafs, the Toronto Maple Leafs? In I kid you not, So maybe you, me, and Jungle or something. Maybe we could do a night on that. I'm going to give you one more and a quick little 5-minute overtime requested by Greg. On the political side, I always joke here, Liam. Greg Meekin's broadcasts, they ain't a democracy, okay? They're a dictatorship, and Greg Meekin's the dictator. But I'm going to show you something. I'm going to use this on screen. This just jumped in my mind. I'm going to show you a hockey jersey or sweater, as they say. And it'll give it away when you see the number, but I just want you to talk for a few seconds. Just a second. Where are we here? Okay, now check the number first. Check the number.
Gotta see that here. Should I hit enlarge my screen? I can't quite make it out.
Okay. No.
Is that Tony Granado's?
No, that's Granado, but with the number 21. Hint, Cami. I don't have it up anymore. But number 21 jersey, okay. Cami Granado. Do you have anything to say? Cami? See, remember, I have to work on it, but I got you in the trivia mode, so I'll be bringing out props and stuff. Cami Granado. Any quick words on that, and then we'll wrap until part 2. Okay.
I don't follow the women's game with the same. I don't get the gigs because of digesting or regurgitating. I do support them wholeheartedly.
Sure.
In terms of how much public support I can possibly give, and go to some games now that Ottawa has a team and things of that nature, Greg.
Yes.
But I know she, that's Cami Granado was a phenomenal player in her day. My goodness gracious.
Yeah. I was blessed to have had she visited Bremerton Ice Arena in 2004 because I wanted to bring women's hockey, professional hockey. It was the last bastion of sports to Seattle. So she was all over that, visited and all that stuff. One of those experiences that you would talk about where you're just there, you're a gold medalist, met her family and stuff. Take I can't thank you enough here, Liam. Take a couple of minutes. All you need, tell people again who you are and where we can find your work, your book. Ogie is just nuts. That's just a nuts book. Go ahead. I'll let you take a minute or two, and then we'll just do the outro after that. Okay, Liam?
Yeah, no, absolutely, my friend. Thank you for that. We touched on it off the start there. I host a webcast myself called the Montreal Forum. It's part of a network that's called Habscast, which is run by Grant McCagg. He's a longtime friend of mine, and we have a number of other contributors. I'm part of it. I share a show with Grant, and I also do my own called the Montreal Forum, which is why I was talking to Yvan Cournoyer today, because he's going to be an upcoming guest on my show. So obviously a tremendous honor to have him on. I've already had Guy Carbonneau and Larry Robinson. This is the first season doing the show. So we're just right out of infancy here. And of course, with my travel, it's a little bit difficult to do them sometimes, but I fit them in where I can, but it's mostly a weekly. And so far we've been doing pretty good. So you can find it anywhere you find podcasts and webcasts, but we do broadcast it on YouTube and then send it out from there. And it's called the Montreal Forum with Liam McGuire, part of Habscast. It's pretty easy to find. I mean, other than that, man, I could show up at anybody's in Canada for sure. I mean, I leave, as I said, I'm going to Rankin Inlet next week because my son's there, and that's a pretty remote part of the country, but don't think you have many viewers from there right now, probably. But I'll be in New Brunswick with Stéphane Richer the week after that. As I said, I got gigs here in Ottawa, and then we're on the road again in January and February, other parts across Canada. So you can find me on social media. On Facebook, I'm the guy drinking out of the Stanley Cup, which I did do. There were 17 beers in it. That's what fits in the bowl, which is a trivia question unto itself. On Canada Day, 1993, and 17 12-ounce pints of Molson X, I should say, is what went in there. And I'm on Twitter, which is now known as X, Liam_hockey. You can find me there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. So, and I answer every message. That's probably one of the things I pride myself on, Greg. If you send me a note, good, bad, or indifferent, because believe me, I've had my share of bad. We all have. Once you get off the fence and make a call on anything, someone's going to take you up on it and hate your guts for something. So I've had to deal with that too, as everybody has in this industry, and no problem. And I answer every message. And anyone wants to talk hockey, by all means. If you ever get a chance to see me in person, please come up and say good day. And I'll finish on this note, and I'll throw it back to you. If anybody watching this comes to Ottawa, I have a restaurant with my name on it called Liam McGuire's, and I will meet you there, and the first round is on me, or two. And just come in and say you saw me on Greg's show, and I'll gladly buy us a couple rounds and talk hockey with anybody that visits Ottawa. Find me, send me a message. I'll see you at Liam's.
Wow, dude. I love Canadians. I love you guys back there. I really do. This is the tip of the iceberg. We've just started chatting about this stuff. Haven't even got to, I had a whole list of stories and stuff. I thank you, old friend. For popping on. I deeply thank Val Olson behind the scenes. She's been facilitating this and stuff.
As well. Val, thank you.
Yeah, and God bless you, Val. I'll just kind of let you take it out and do the outro. But Liam McGuire, remember, part deux. That's DEUX. Okay, sometime in the next few weeks. Okay.
What a great show today. I'm so glad that Liam was able to stop by. And we talked everything today. So if you're just joining us now, go back to the beginning. You'll learn about some behind the scenes stuff with Wayne Gretzky. Of course, that 1988 or 98-99 contract with Labatt's that had Liam on the road over 26 Tuesdays, and then all those rings in one room. Wow. It just goes on and on. But Glenn Gretzky behind the scenes stuff. Next time, I want to know a little more about the Steve Walton contract that's in Canada you were talking about. So there's lots of questions. And as Liam said, get in touch with him. You'll find him on X. You can find 3 books he has out. His latest, don't forget, right here, The Real Ogie. So check that out. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Share this broadcast. Greg, I'm going to pass it off to you as we head out. It's Hockey Talk today.
Thank you, everybody. Away we go. That's what we say in Canada before a hockey fight. Away we go. Val, do your outro. Thanks, Liam. Chat with you soon, man.
All right, guys.
Chat with you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Hockey Talk. Greg Meekin shares his love for the greatest game on earth, hockey. Cool people, cool stories. Hockey Talk is one very cool radio show. So let's drop the puck, and away we go.